The glacier is melting. Yeah. Yep. This area is still frozen. Well, it is a beautiful spring day, and I'd like to say I'm out here trying to clean up the garden, but that's going to be a little bit difficult. Yeah. No, I did not get the leaves shredded last year, so unfortunately they were all stuck in garbage bags and everything got sopping wet. So I've got to let all that stuff dry out before I can start shredding more leaves. Walking through my little river here. I was all the way to the front of the garden there. See, lots of water. That's what happens when you put in little tiny berms to hold back the water. Sometimes it works too good, especially in the springtime. And if you're wondering, no, the ground beneath is not frozen. I can pretty much shove a stick in it, and down probably 6 inches, so no, it's not frozen. We'll get to those in a sec. So, what I have been doing is trying to clean up and organize a bit of the fruit orchard back here. Last year I was so focused on getting the back end, last little section covered in cardboard and leaves over here. All that area that looks like it's all flattened out. That's the new area. This is the older area here. And, well, the growth has been fantastic. So, finally getting some of these berry vines hooked up and trellised. So now it's off the ground. These things have about 20-foot long vines. They're not yastaberries. I forget what these things are. I'm going to have to figure out the name of this thing again. I actually forget it. But it has 10-foot long canes, and I've had to basically string them up on this trellis here just to get them off the ground. Had a 20-foot spread all the way over into the blackberry patch. So what I've been doing is trying to get the blackberries up on these bars and off the ground, or wrapped up on posts and stakes. You know, just get them off the ground and separated. A little bloody, but otherwise I succeeded. So another thing I did though was I took a shovel and I dug out a lot of those canes that were in here, because they have a little root that travels underneath and it starts popping up all over the place, and it was just getting too crowded in the ground there. So what I did is I hacked a bunch of them out. Plus I kind of pruned everything down a little bit so it wasn't so dense in a cluster. And what I did, and what I'm going to do, is I'm going to cut them up, stick them in a pot, and get them to start rooting. So the easiest thing here is just to take any one of these, and you have buds along there. And so I'm going to cut them with a bud on the bottom, 2 or 3 buds, and then I'm just going to shove them into a pot. And then I'm going to shove them in a handy little puddle of water here. Get them all soaking wet. And hopefully they'll start rooting. Well, obviously they're going to start rooting their blackberries. So I'm going to end up with about 50 or so. But then there's a few others that I had to dig out. And yeah, well-rooted plants already. So I'm going to pot these ones up. And then there's a few that came out with just the root system, so I hacked some of that out. Lots of little buds in here. So I'm basically taking the time to propagate my blackberry patch. And that's going to help because I plan on expanding the fruit orchard into areas outside the garden too. So, I mean, let's face it, I have all that land out there. Might as well start shoving blackberries out there because, you know, they'll grow. And so, once I'm done that, maybe I'll actually start dealing with that. That's for another day. Alright, see you guys later. Alright, out here in the garden on a very cool spring day, and just looking at a ton of work that needs to get done. Where do you start? Well, I think we're going to have to use some string line and mark out these beds again because, everything kind of got a little wonky in last year's growing season. So I'm going to try and mark out the beds and the pathways again, just try to get everything organized before I start planting anything. We'll be getting the peas in real soon. It's time to plant those and a few other things, but that'll come afterwards. I've moved the greenhouse structure, so it's going to be off to the side on the grass. Going to have to put the canopy up on that, and I'll have a place to now put out my early transplants. Maybe start a few new things. Yep. Composting. Got to get that back out on the garden beds. Got to rebuild the chicken coop. Needed a bigger chicken coop, so this is going to get dismantled, and it's going to go on the other side of those compost bins. So, and that'll free up this area, and then I can actually give the chickens a yard to run out in over on the other side in the grass. It's not going to interfere with me getting to my garden this year. That'll be nice. As you can see, I got a ton of garbage bags. They're all full of leaves. I have to pull them out, let them dry, and start shredding everything. I've been working along the hedge line there, trimming off the dead and overgrown branches and stuff, trying to get rid of all that stuff. That's going to be used for posts and poles and firewood, so I can make some more biochar, all kinds of stuff. Maybe I'll chip some of it. We'll see. Along with that, I got to drag all that out, get that mown up. But things are starting to come up in the garden. So, yay. I got some garlic and some elephant garlic coming up there. Over there, got some, what is that? Parsnips and parsley. They're going to come back and hopefully give me some seed stock for next year. Got some chives, walking onions, and the sorrel. First things to come up in the springtime. Moving on out to here, it's still pretty damp. It was a lot worse last week. What is it? I think it's April 18th right now. So, getting the spring melt, and a lot of it just kind of forms these puddles, and so that'll soak into the ground and be out of my way pretty soon. Yeah, what do you got over here? Things are actually starting to leaf out a little bit, so got some gooseberries. They're starting to leaf out. Yeah, the gooseberries are coming in. We've got some Haskap starting to leaf out. Look at that. And my blackberries are now leafing out. That'll be cool. What's another thing we got to do around here? Other than finish cutting through all this underbrush here, I'm going to have to re-trellis my grapevines. I'm going to actually put in a decent trellis in here and get my grapevines up onto something where it's not going to be, well, knocked over, blown over. It was just a bad setup, but it's what I had at the time, and that's what I used. What else? Not much going on out in the orchard right now. It's still pretty lifeless. As I said, just a few of the early plants coming in right now. So it'll wake up soon enough. Oh, that's right. Over here, and of course, we have our rhubarb starting to come in. Lots of rhubarb coming in. And I can harvest it without you sticking me. So I got all that coming in. Yeah. So that's about it that's going on in the garden right now. Mostly I'm just waiting for a lot of these other patches to start drying out. That way I can go walking through it without squishing my way through it. Oh yeah, you're gonna have to take care of the sorrel in the garden here. Yep, that's what happens when you don't put in your physical barrier here. When you're starting your carbon blanket garden, if you don't put that physical barrier in, sorrel will just creep on into the garden and take over. So I've got to redo this section. I thought I had gotten it by redoing this section. That's where it first started, and then it just spread to over there, and then it spread to over there. So I got a lot more to do. I'm just going to do this whole section, and then all this grass in between the annual beds and the orchard area and all around the perimeter, that's all going to get covered in cardboard and leaves too. And then I won't have to worry about all that sorrel creeping over. And that's about it. What's going on in the garden right now. So basically it's a full plate, but it's a full plate every year. You're going to start, there's just so much to do. And yeah, it's time to get back to work and start getting this stuff done.